This video is about the difference between conflict and violence. Conflicts are a fact of life. No one can pretend going through life without coming across any conflict at any time. It's just impossible. People are too different. Situations are sometimes triggering because we don't have enough time, because there's not enough resources, there's only one car, two kids wanting to use it on Saturday evening. All kind of subjects, the fact that we won't be able to have what we expected, we hoped for, all these situations will bring eventually conflict. Our values, our priorities, our pace, our preferences are all motives for differences that might trigger confrontation, conflict at times. The whole thing is to manage conflict, to manage differences, to manage negotiating differences without falling into the spiral of violence. So that's what we're going to look into today. Let's state the main elements that differentiate conflict from violence. Then we'll look into how at some point conflict brings us close to tipping into violence and how it's important to be aware of that difference, to kind of stop, let go, call a timeout, take a break, agree that we disagree but won't be able to finalize any discussion at one specific moment in time, and be able to rethink about these things at another moment, another meeting with the person with whom we've had this difficulty of getting along. So what's at stake in conflict that is right, that is human, and that will not bring us to the brink of violence? Well, conflict is about arguing, it's about our conviction, it's about our needs, it's about our vision. So we may argue, we may bring things up, we may even feel anger sometimes that the other person can't see our point, that the consequences that she might not see or he might not see might be difficult to live for us. So it can be intense, but the difference is that we're still able to listen, to get at least part of the point of view of the other person. Although we might not agree, we can see that she or he has a point of view and has reasons to think or see things that way. We might still have to precise a few things, ask a few questions, and that's part of communicating and conflict resolution, which we'll talk about at some other point in another video. Violence is that it's going to be about attack. It's going to be about overpowering. You want so much to make your point, to win the argument, that you'll go as far as imposing your views. What also differentiates conflict from violence is that if both of you would like to win a situation, would like to win the argument, you'd like the other person to admit that, yeah, maybe your point of view is better, it will never be at the point of damaging the relationship. Yeah, there might be tension, there might be a necessity to take some time off, but not to damage the relationship in a way that couldn't be brought back to a good state. Violence, yes, both of you want to win that discussion, but you're kind of prone to use any means, whether it is blaming, shaming, denying, denigrating. You will also argue about the subject, but not the person. You're not going to blame or to attack or to denigrate the person. You might say, oh, this point of view is not appropriate in this situation. So you might disagree clearly on the subject, but not on the person. And what is at stake is not only the subject, it's control over the other's point of view. You want that person to think like you, or to admit that you'll be the one to decide. In this situation, what should be experienced is that you're both equal. None is afraid of speaking out of or about the other point of view. Speaking is okay. Speaking is still okay. This brings, of course, the opposite. The other person will refrain from speaking up by fear of reactions or to manage the tension and violence to make sure that it won't go out of hand. He or she takes charge of the situation because this person cannot count on you to manage yourself. In conflict, parties are able to admit mistakes. Let's say, okay, you interpreted the point of view of the other in such a way that you suddenly realize, oh, that's not what he or she meant. Well, you're able to admit, okay, that's not what I understood. I'm sorry. I apologize. And you can even make amends and saying, okay, I've been unfair. I thought that you at this point of view, I didn't realize that what you meant was. So you're able to apologize. So communication's still open. If you are the dominant party, this person often refuses to discuss his views or negotiate and will not admit any mistake, will not even be open to any real dialogue except on his or her terms. In conflict, people around you might witness the conflict but won't feel any discomfort or fear of intervening because they are clearly aware that it's just an argument, that's just a discussion, maybe a bit heated at time, but there's no fear to have about what's going on. Nobody's going to get hurt, nobody's going to be treated in either physical or psychological way that no one would agree of. And finally, confrontation can be brought up by other parties. That is, you could be the one bringing up the problem. Your partner, your friend might be the one coming up with the problem. There's no relationship of victim and dominant in that situation. Violence, people around, of course, will witness this as acting out or fear of acting out and fear of outbursts. They might try to intervene, which might trigger more escalation, but they might also refrain because they're also afraid or don't want to make things worse. And finally, some roles tend to be coming back over and over, one of being a victim of the other person. So I guess you can probably see yourself clearly in a lot of situations, whether at work, at home, in your couple, or with your kids or friends. Conflicts for sure, maybe violence. If it is so, please take a good thinking stance and look back at what you did. Maybe use one of our other exercises and see at which tipping point you should have let go, or you should have called a timeout, you should have done a reset, you should have decided, okay, it's not the right time, I'm not in the right mood, or the other person is too tense, too uncomfortable. I have to take that into account and stop this escalation. So have a good work around this new tool.